think holistically about this, you say, yes, and it's not either or. We want personal freedom as much as possible, and that's contained within a larger context, which is an unjust society, and we need to respond to that somehow. So how do you balance that? And there's not a formula. I can't say, okay, here's how you balance that. It all depends on who you are and who your kids are and what community you're in. And if you respond authentically to all of that and find the balance that's right, that's holistic education in practice. Another thing holism talks about is the spiritual nature of human beings. And this can be misunderstood because our culture, again, going back to this, on one hand, religious ideology that doesn't trust human nature, and a scientific materialistic ideology that says, we'll let religion handle that. We're only concerned about real things. Spirituality has been lost. And so part of the movements, the countercultural movement that we've seen since the 1960s is this human potential movement, this new interest in Asian religious and philosophical traditions, yoga and meditation and things like this. Even within the Western traditions, there are people trying to go deeper with them, trying to find a deeper sense of spirituality. So when holistic thinkers talk about spirituality, it's not a religious practice. It's not a religious dogma. I'm purposely not standing up here to give this talk. I wanted to be down here because it should not be confused with, okay, I have the answers. Here's the book. Here's what you should know to be a spiritual person. It's not about that. It's about somehow, in your own way, connecting with that larger, ultimately large context, whatever that is, whatever you call it, whatever makes sense to you. I can tell you personally, I have not made that connection yet. I'm working on it, but I can't tell you what it's like. But holism says it's there. There's something, it's not just out there, it's in here. Every human being comes into the world with that connection. Now, so then the question is, are you going to treat your students as if they hold that divinity within themselves, or aren't you? That's the crucial question. Now, if you do, there's not a formula for how to do that. It just means you're going to have this tremendous respect and compassion, and you're going to listen to children. You're going to wonder, what's their experience like? How do they see the world? Where are they going? What's their destiny? Where's their life path taking them? That's important. Again, it doesn't mean you throw out, well, gee, kid, at some point it'd be important to read and it'd be important to learn skills so you can have a job or whatever. It's not that you throw that out, but you don't start with that. You don't make that the exclusive focus. You start with, who is this child? What is within you that's wanting to be nourished and come out into the world and express yourself? What is that? I'm here to help you give birth to that. It's like being a midwife. It's like Socrates, right? Being a midwife to what's already within us. So to me, that's what spirituality means in education. And a holistic educator, however that looks in practice, a holistic educator is trying to do that. All right, so I'll talk briefly about this self-organizing revolution, then we'll have some questions and conversation. How do we get from here to there? All right, given the political and corporate system that we have now, how do we have a whole country made up of schools like Wellspring? Or schools like Wellspring, but maybe some families want more of a Waldorf approach, or more of a democratic school approach, or more of a traditional approach. That works for a lot of families, a lot of kids. How do we have a system that allows that? So I've given up on thinking that it's going to be some political movement, that somehow we'll elect the right people, or if we put enough money into foundations or something, we'll make it happen. I don't think it's going to work that way. It might. But I think it's about a change of worldview. It's in our thinking. It's in how we hold reality in our minds. And that's not something we can change very quickly or easily, but I think it's happening. And if you look at a book like Paul Hawken's Blessed Unrest, he's talking about that. He's saying there are millions of people around the world who are working for peace or working for environmental protection or whatever it is. And one by one, they're pretty small, but as a whole, there's a part of humanity that's waking up and that is trying to build a whole different kind of civilization. So I think holistic education is part of that. It's not just a group of radical educators and dissatisfied parents. It's people who are waking up, like millions of others around the world, to a new era in humanity. That this industrial age, this age of huge institutions and top-down management, it's proving itself to be dysfunctional. It's starting to crack. I don't know how it's going to fall apart. I don't know how long it's going to take. It might be really ugly. It might be really painful. It might not be pretty at all. But I do think that this system is not sustainable. And whether it's peak oil or economic collapse or what it is, it's just not going to last. And so those of us who are feeling the pull of this post-industrial culture, this postmodern culture, we're building it. We're going to be ready when the systems fall apart because we're like grass coming out of the cracks in the concrete. But what is it going to take? What does this culture look like? So in this book you think 5 is a mystical number or something, because I have 5 principles of this self-organizing revolution. So it starts with a basic respect for the person, which is related to this idea of spirituality, but you don't have to call it spirituality. You can call any of this whatever you want. But it starts with each individual is a sacred presence. Each person is due respect. Let's start with that. Okay, so that's built into this culture. A second principle is balance, and I've talked about this. This comes back to letting go of our ideologies and saying, all right, I believe this, and I recognize that your point of view, even though it's different, you have something to offer too. Let's dialogue. Let's find the larger truth that contains both of ours. That's a sense of balance. None of us has all the answers. A third principle is decentralization of authority. You could call this anarchism if you want, but it's basically saying our institutions are too big. There's too much power coming down from the top. No Child Left Behind is a disaster because it's a few powerful people telling all of us how to think and how to live. A true, humane, holistic, again, whatever word you want to use, culture is one where power is decentralized. It's a Jeffersonian vision. I'm trying to reclaim Jefferson's thinking that democracy is local. It's face-to-face. No one should have so much power that they can affect the lives of so many other people. So that's a principle. A fourth principle I do get from Rudolf Steiner. A lot of his thinking, I don't know how many of you have looked at his thinking, a lot of it is totally incomprehensible to me. I don't know what he's talking about when he talks about old Saturn and old moon and all this stuff. I just can't grasp it. But when he talks about the threefold social order, I think he's onto something. So his idea here is that there are natural spheres in any healthy society. There's an economic sphere where we're trading goods. There's a political sphere where we have rights as individuals. And then there's the cultural sphere where what is within us, what is deep, spiritual, soulful, whatever word is within us is allowed to freely flourish. And he says that these 3 realms of society should not interfere with each other. You shouldn't have the economic sphere, the business world, trying to dictate